so for today's foot care, you're going to need a lacrosse ball. If you have a kid's lacrosse ball, it's a little bit softer by Franklin. That's kind of a nice alternative too, just to keep the potential for bruising your foot down to a minimum. That being said, if you have one of the harder lacrosse balls you're working with, just make sure you don't put so much pressure that you do bruise the bottom of your foot. You want it to be uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be painful, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is just going through kind of our 5 points of contact on our foot that we're looking at behind our big toe, middle toe, and little toe, and then right where that heel and arch meet up back here, and then the arch itself. Those are kind of the 5 hot spots that we're going to look through. And initially we're just going to use the ball to kind of roll slowly through all of those areas on the base of that foot and see if we can kind of figure out where our most painful and uncomfortable spots are, okay? Once we've identified those, we're just going to put a little pressure on the most uncomfortable one first, so triage, right, prioritize. And then we're just going to take about 10 nice easy breaths, breathing in, exhaling out, relaxing. Okay, so again, just about 10 breaths here. For time's sake on the demo, we won't go through all 10 breaths, but you get the idea. And then from here, we're going to actually start adding some movement into the foot. So we're going to spread those toes wide as we can and raise them as high as we can up while keeping the ball in the same spot. And then curl those toes back in as tight and as far as we can underneath. So you're going to go back and forth between these two ranges of motion. As, again, high and spread the toes wide, and then lower and curl under as tight as you can. So we're just trying to get as much range of motion as we can through those feet while keeping that pinned, fun hot spot, okay? So you're going to go through that, and depending on how much time you have, you may only be hitting your most tender spot, but as you get the opportunity to try to work through as many of those as you can until your feet feel a little more comfortable. And you'll do the same thing on that opposite foot. Okay? So once we've done a little bit of that pin and stretch, we're going to go ahead and take that into some toe work. And this is kind of to both help with the toes getting their flexion, as well as getting a little bit more activation through the bottom of the foot. So this is the part where if you have a wall handy, sometimes it helps just to put the ball against to give you a little bit more stability on it. And you're going to place your big toe right on the top of the ball, and we're going to try to bring those kind of pads of your foot all the way down to the floor, okay? So from here, I'm really trying to get that pad of the foot all the way in contact, big toe on the top, and then press down through the big toe into the top of the ball. So I'm pressing as hard as I can for about a 10-second contraction. And as I'm pressing, I'm still trying to keep that pad of my foot making contact at the same time, okay? Sometimes there's a tendency for that pad to try to raise up when I press down through that big toe. Okay, and once I have that 10 seconds of pressing down, now we're going to do the opposite. Keep that pad of the foot still down, right? Now we're going to imagine we're trying to lift that big toe off the ball, and we're going to hold that for about 10 seconds. You're not actually going to probably be able to lift that toe off, but the idea is you're trying to get that activation through the foot. So we're really starting to feel that through the big toe and through the top of our foot. Okay? So that's, again, about a 10-second count. Come up for a second, shake out your foot if you need to, and we're going to do the same thing, but now placing the ball towards the outside of our foot, towards the little toes. Okay? So same thing, set up so that the little toes are right on the outside of the foot, or right on the ball. Again, trying to get that pad of the foot to the ground. And then from here, we're just going to do the same thing, 10 seconds pressing down with those toes onto the top of the ball, or the side of the ball, depending on where your foot lands. The key is that we're just trying to make contact and try to really push the toes into the ball, okay? With some resistance there. And then same thing again, we're going to relax the foot, and we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to try to pull those toes up and away from the ball as much as we can while still keeping that pad of the foot to the floor. And same thing, about 10-second count here. Okay? So we'll do that for about 2 to 3 reps on each side, and then call it good for your feet. All right, so just to give you a little bit better view of what's happening with the foot on the ball for this. So again, when we're getting the big toe on, we're trying to place the big toe on the top of the ball, and then from here, I'm trying to bring that pad of my foot down to the floor. So my toes are still being pressed up into that dorsiflexion, but I'm still making contact contact with the floor with my pad of my foot, okay? So it's getting a nice stretch and pushing that toe upward and back towards my shin. So again, remember I'm pushing down as hard as I can while keeping this flat and in contact with the floor. And then afterwards for the second one, I'm gonna be trying to raise up as high as I can without allowing this to come up too. So again, you won't see any movement likely coming off the ball, but that's not the point. The point is to try to get that activation through the foot. So you should still be feeling it even if you don't actually get that distance from the ball, okay? Just again, so you can see from a different angle. See, I'm getting the pad of my foot down here, and my big toe is resting on the top of the ball. The same thing applies when I'm doing my small toes. So from the side, again, I'm trying to get the pad of my foot down, and my little toes are just resting on the top edge of that ball.